Hey YouTube, what's good? This is Steven and welcome back. Alright, so I want to kind of talk a little bit about something that I've been seeing and witnessing here and there, more or less, throughout my years of, of living. Um, which is kind of like foreign blacks, aka black people. And I'm talking in the situation in the context of like the United States, okay? So some people you may be like in other countries, so this may not totally make sense to you, but I'll just put in the context of the United States, this is what I'm talking about. All right. Foreign black people, as in black people who don't come from who weren't born and raised in the United States. Okay. um, you know, who come over here are either some who were born abroad but came to United States a little bit later in their adolescent years. That can apply to. All right. But yeah, I've seen and noticed over the years that sometimes these, foreign black people kind of tend to have a bit of a attitude as if they're better than African American people. All right, this is what I've noticed over the years. And again, by the way, I'm not coming for anybody in particular here, you know, as far as like the people who are subscribed to me, right? This isn't directed at any of you guys. If you cool with black people, black Americans, then this is not directed towards you. All right, you know. If you don't think you're better than or above African Americans, this is not directed toward you. Okay? All right. Just want to put that disclaimer out there. But yes, I have seen black people, foreign black people, kind of say a little, things here and there like, oh, these black Americans kind of like, have kids out of wedlock. That's something. Or like, oh, they have bad reputations, like they're gangbangers, or like, oh, they're not educated, right? Basically, just kind of like more or less to an extent regurgitating like racist white people talking points, honestly. And it really annoys me, you know, really, because I'm like, okay, what really makes you think you're so much better than the next African American person, right? You come from abroad, you know. Typically, it's either, the motherland, Africa, or the Caribbean. Typically, that's where I see it coming from. I haven't really encountered many, you know, Britannic black people, British black people, black Britons, so to speak. So I can't say for sure if it's coming from them, but I know for sure Caribbeans and Native Africans I see this coming from tend to have sort of like an attitude like they better than us, like they better than black folk or the black American folks. But I'm like, why? Where'd that come from? Because I guess they looking at us thinking like, oh, y'all so crazy, y'all out of control, And again, like oftentimes I think when people say those things, they don't really take into context what we've been through as a people. And as far as like Native Africans having this attitude towards us, especially like West Africans, especially them. I'm like, okay, so let me get this straight, Native West African person. Let me get this straight. All right, you gave us a way, or rather, your ancestors gave us a way to a foreign group of people who were, demonic, devilish monsters. You gave us a way to them, and they had their way with us, right? You gave us to these people. You helped capture us and give us to these people. Now you guys turn around and be like, "Oh, you guys are so weird and crazy." Like, Okay, but this is partially your fault. Well, a lot of it is your fault if you didn't give us to these people. Capture us and give us to these people. This wouldn't have happened, right? And also, it's like, again, what we've been through. We haven't really had any time to heal as a people because we've been constantly under attack. You know, it was first slavery, and then once we got free from slavery, then we had to worry about, like, the Jim Crow era, and being like attacked by the KKK, and then you know the lynchings, and now like the police brutality. It's like we haven't really had a time to really heal as a people. We've been too busy just trying to survive, right? So yeah, and then also I noticed that some people are like, oh, you guys, like, oh, look at us, look what we're doing, versus look what you guys are doing. And usually when that happens, it's like they're comparing what, the foreign black people who come to the United States and what they do and their accomplishments to the accomplishments of African Americans bottom 10%. They're making that comparison as if they're sending their bottom 10% here, and their bottom 10% is just so awesome, right? That they're doing all this, that, and the third. But they're making these false comparisons here because when people period come over here, typically it's not the bottom 10%. Typically speaking, all right, it's usually more along the lines of the top 10% coming over to the United States, typically, right? So sometimes, foreign black people like to make that comparison, that false comparison, that false analogy, because they're not making an accurate comparison. They don't really want to compare themselves to our top 10% because, despite popular belief, we actually do have a pretty awesome top 10%. The thing is, that top 10% tends to not get much media coverage. So we don't really notice it. We don't really see it, but it's there. Trust me, it's there. But no, they don't do that. They go for like the lowest common denominator when it comes to us. They go like they just, I don't know. Again, it's not all. It's not. It's just the ones that I see sometimes. And also another thing, it's like if you're so awesome, why you gotta come here? If you guys are so awesome, why couldn't you make something pop off in your homeland if you were so awesome, right? I see that doesn't come up either for some reason. Some reason they don't never seem to talk about that. And how messed up their home country is to the point where they got to come over here to get something to pop off on, to get further in their, studies or whatever, because they kind of reached a point where it's kind of sort of like, a glass ceiling, perhaps not necessarily a glass ceiling, but kind of like I think they referred to it as like the brain drain, kind of like when you get to a point where in some countries where it's like you kind of have to go abroad to be educated because they don't really have much education going on in their home countries, or perhaps the educational opportunities are not as plentiful as other countries, you know? So oftentimes they come over to the United States as well as other countries, but the United States is one of those countries where they come over, right? You know, and another thing, which is really important, like don't get it twisted. You here because of us. You're here because of what we went through during, like, not even like for centuries, but also during the civil rights movement. Again, what we accomplished, the path that we helped pay for you to come over here. Because before that, they weren't really letting like a lot of, you know, immigrants of color into the United States like that. To be honest, if you were an immigrant, you would probably have to be like a white immigrant, honestly. So don't get it twisted. Just because a white man is, allowing you to come into his country, don't forget who made that possible. The blood, sweat, tears, and lives of black people who made that possible. Don't get it twisted. All right? Don't misunderstand. But, I think I've pretty much said what I have to say about that situation. To, my Black American subscribers, have you guys kind of noticed that? You know? To my subscribers who are black but perhaps are, quote unquote, foreign blacks, have you noticed that? Have you participated in that perhaps? Could you perhaps give some, you know, dialogue, not dialogue, but some backstory on that, and sort of maybe demystify things for us, perhaps. So, again, thank you very much for watching. Adios and goodbye for now.